All right. We will see if this works. I am not sure that it will work, but let's go ahead and give her a go. This is the BitGrow grant proposal, and also included will be the BitGrow system effect on Idaho food security and the reduction of carbon footprint with cost savings. So first off, I'd like to get into just a generic presentation of the BitGrow grant presentation. Um, First of all, my name is Shane. I'm in Athol, Idaho. I am homesteader, small microgreen farmer. I'm mechanical and computer background, founder of BitGrow AgTech meets crypto mining. I have been crypto mining since 2017. Started in Bitcoin in 2010, but didn't really know what I was doing. It took me almost 7 years to figure out where to get started. The problem winter farming here in Idaho and many areas, or growing tropical fruit even in most of the country, is very energy intensive and costly. Crypto miners generate large amounts of waste heat. There's an opportunity to use this waste heat to reduce energy costs, to create more profit within the agricultural sector and crypto mining sector as well. Local growth reduces transportation costs. This also will help reduce the carbon footprint. Some of the basic things we see here in the bulletins is you're using the heat from the Bitcoin miners to warm greenhouses and provide other processes such as dehydrating, which we do here at BitGrow. Growing microgreens and herbs or other plants, anything that can be grown in an enclosed structure or greenhouse would be a candidate. Include a BitGrow powered herb dehydrator. I have done that. Combine agriculture with cryptocurrency infrastructure for ag tech. That is our next step, one of the next steps. So far, what we've done, we have a small greenhouse, 5x9. We have two ASIC miners producing about 4,000 watts of heat. If everything's going, I don't need that much, but that's what I have available. Growing microgreens and herbs inside. I have grown a little bit of microgreens, but because of the time demands on harvesting, even though it's much more profitable, as we'll get into, we've been concentrating on herbs, and we've now developed a tea. We have a working dehydrator that is using 100% Bitcoin heat. So the grant funds are going to be used to purchase more materials for greenhouse. We want airflow and temperature sensors for testing. We want to monitor this and try to calculate what kind of energy we're harvesting from these miners, and then reverse engineer that to see what the miners can make in agricultural gains. So gather all this crop data on yield and energy efficiency. We need some tooling to develop some of our systems. So the expected impact of all this is going to be reduced fuel cost, use in small scale ag, and then throttling up to bigger eventually. Dual income for rural farmers and miners. Scalable model for off-grid sustainable farming. And then we want to educate others and document on YouTube, which we've been doing on bitgrow.farm at YouTube is our channel. So you can check that out if you want. So we welcome feedback from the share team. We are getting that ongoing. Also, continue refining prototype, ready to submit full proposal this fall. Interested in partnering with local growers if they want to go forward on this. Now, let's go into some of the numbers, like what kind of impact could this have across the state, right? This could be substantial. If we look at the food security and reduction of carbon footprint and the cost savings, these are all hypothetical based on the data that I could extrapolate with the help of AI. But I think these numbers are a good rule of thumb to go by. and the calculations from the heat and the energy costs, those are given. There are numbers on transportation, how much food is imported into Idaho. We grow a lot of corn, we grow a lot of potatoes, we grow a lot of wheat. The problem is the wheat and the corn is usually feed animals, for those type of livestock animals. That doesn't really feed our population. The potatoes, a lot of them are exported, so that leaves a lot of greens, a lot of herbs, things like that are shipped in from other areas. So with a modest 5% of imported substitution, in other words, we grow 5% of it here with our system, that keeps approximately $2 million a year in Idaho instead of paying out-of-state trucking companies. So that's a lot of money, but it's also a big carbon footprint. We figure 180 tons of CO2, roughly the footprint of every mid-sized car in a town like McCall, Idaho. So that's a lot. Increases our food security, and then there's also just the nice thing of having the locally grown crops, promoting the livelihood and jobs here in Idaho, or small businesses. So what kind of foods are imported? Well, there's about $6 billion worth of commodities, including $428 million of food and agricultural products. And those numbers are up to date for 2023. Canada exported about $360 million in food and agricultural. Mexico, $68 million food and products to our country. So Idaho imports smaller quantities from other countries like Chile, Thailand, and Italy, but Canada and Mexico dominate the agricultural market. So we would like to see more of that grown here. The main food crops are dairy and cheese, fresh produce and vegetables, grains and seeds. So I'd like to focus on fresh processed vegetables, also herbs and teas and things like that. So the trucking gonna cost from most, and this is just a round robin kind of thing, but major cities from Idaho, about $2,000 to $7,000 per load, depending on destination. Atlanta, New York figures are there. The average cost ranges from about 2.5% per mile on a refrigerated, and about 2.22 cents for loads over 200 miles. So smaller trucks for smaller areas and smaller shipments can go as low as 98 cents. So if we average all that out, we get we can get the numbers of that. We'll look at those. And then also there's rail. We get stuff shipped in by rail, and that is quite expensive, about $95 per ton. Trucks are about $250 per ton. So it can go as low as $70 per ton, but I think it's up a little higher because the cost of diesel right now. There's barges into Lewiston. That also moves a lot of grain, food, but again, our fresh fruits and vegetables are usually trucked in on small to large trucks. Those usually don't go rail, and they definitely don't go barge. So we're concentrating on the trucks. And we're just going to go ahead and average all these out and come up with an average from that. So, and then we're back to our 5%. Let's produce 5%, see what that comes up to. So Idaho, $6 billion in goods outside the USA. Agricultural products, 6% of all U.S. imports. Idaho imports. Okay, so we're going to turn dollars into weight. Use the U.S. Customs data for average weights. And this is just a round robin, but includes fruits and vegetables, which may be a little lighter. So the costs will be higher because the more density of the beverages and meats that's in this figure is actually skewing us in the wrong direction. Okay, for getting the best numbers. It's actually giving us worse numbers when you think about it. So we're about with this number, which is going to be actually a low number for vegetables that take up more room, typically going to be about $1,200 per short ton, 300,000 short ton of food arrive by truck and rail each year. So now we take the entire transportation cost and emissions that is going to average about 750 miles from Seattle, Tacoma, LA, Nogales. These are some of the areas we're looking at. 53-foot refrigerated trailer, 20 short ton, 24 average rate is 3.75. Cost per ton mile divided by 20 is 19 cents. And that ends up giving us a freight bill of $42 million a year. Tailpipe exhaust 36.4 million kilograms of CO2 per year, or 36.4 tons. So just 5% of those. That is a savings in dollars of $2.1 million, and we reduce our carbon footprint by 1,820 tons. So here's why it's ballpark. We've talked about some of those things. We're skewed in one way on some of them, and we're skewed in another way on some of the others. But the takeaway, we get $2 million in Idaho. Instead of paying out-of-state trucking companies, we're getting rid of 180 tons of CO2, which again, it's just like taking all the cars out of a mid-sized town. It's not a Boise, but it's not a little town like Athol. It's in the middle of the road there somewhere. I should look up those numbers and add those. I think probably about 60,000 population, but I'll double check that. So this is my presentation for the BitGrow system. This is just a glimpse of what utilizing this by 5% to offset the trucked in food, what it would do. And this doesn't even take into effect the amount of income that's brought in for selling the products and vegetables for the business owners, and how that, that them spending more money to other companies and businesses and buying a cup of coffee and things like that, it just really snowballs that this is a good thing for all the cold states. It reduces our need for food shipped out of the country. It helps make things cleaner for us. It's just really a win-win proposition. So if you want to contribute to this project in any way, as far as extrapolating data or helping us to secure a grant, any of these things are appreciated. If you'd like to be a part of designing a system, BitGrow does help consult, and we will help you design a small to medium system. And we are in the process of obtaining our second greenhouse. This one will not be made out of the loose plastic, polyvinyl or whatever it is that typically greenhouses for residential have. But we're moving, or also cold, they call them cold houses, hoop houses. A lot of times we use this plastic to stretch over. We will be experimenting with the plastic panels, the fluted plastic greenhouses, which is actually the next step up. A lot of commercial greenhouses use this type of plastic. So this will be some great data that will be extrapolated. We've also produced a Bitcoin tea. We call it minting Bitcoin. And it is grown in our greenhouse and dehydrated with our Bitcoin miners, with the heat from that. And we actually just put out a post yesterday on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter on that tea that is available for sale now. So we are moving forward, and look forward to input that you might have on this project. Please feel free to do that. Thank you.